Eclectic is probably one of the hardest styles to do. And why do I say that? It's one of my favorite styles because it allows me to be expressive in so many different aesthetics and bringing it all together. But it is one of the hardest to do because it's all about balance. You have to be able to balance the styles all together. So you're putting together traditional, modern, transitional, let's say bohemian, maximalist, art deco, Bauhaus, brutalism, all these styles, and maybe not using all of them, but what you're doing is you're taking pieces from each and mixing them up. Now, that's like a recipe. So if you think about making muffins or even pancakes, pancakes is a pretty simple recipe, but it can be messed up. You can mess up a pancake recipe very easily. If you, for instance, add too much baking soda or baking powder, it's going to be really bitter. You might get nice big fluffy pancakes, but it's going to be really bitter. You're probably not going to be able to eat them. And that's the same with eclectic style, that you want to have a good balance of the styles that you're pulling together. And you want to make sure that the styles that you are pulling together, the elements of those are all working in unison and are cohesive. So some of the things that you can bring together from different styles is the the shapes in a style. So if you're using curves or circles or something like that, then repeating them. And that's part of balancing is in the repetition. So you could use the curve of an Art Deco arch, but then the circular ideas of a mid-century modern and bringing those curves in so that you see them repeated throughout your space. That's one way of balancing it when you're repeating, because eclectic, if nothing speaks to nothing else, if nothing else is talking to each other, it's going to be a mashup. It's not going to work. And that is the key to making eclectic work in your space, is making sure that there's some elements that are similar and that are speaking to each other. You have to think of a conversation when people are talking about different things, or, you're talking about colleges and somebody's been at Harvard and somebody's been at Miami University and somebody's been at University of Philadelphia or at Boston U and somebody else has been at UCLA. Yes. If you're talking about just about your university, they're all very different aesthetic, different sensitivities, there are different interests in each of those colleges. So in order to have a cohesive, interesting conversation and to connect to each other, it has to be about college. You're going to be talking about college, the experience of being at college, not the experience of being at your particular college. And that's the same thing that you think about with eclectic design, is that there is something that brings all those pieces together. And now you're talking about it and all the pieces are talking. I bring rooms alive. I think they're living beings talking to each other. My clients say to me, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why do things like the walls are not talking to the furniture? They shouldn't." But yes, they do. They do. And that's really important, that there is a conversation and that it's cohesive and that they're all speaking together. So eclectic design, one, have a common conversation piece in there. And that's not like, okay, one piece of art. That is, the art matches. Here, actually, if you look behind me, I have 3 different pieces of art, 3 different artists, but they're similar in their subject matter. And they actually work with the wall behind because there is a similarity in the density of color and the vividness of the color that I'm using. I love eclectic. I do a lot in my house with eclectic because sometimes I can't decide what I love Art Deco. I love mid-century modern. I love traditional. I love modern. And I bring all the elements together because I just love how they all speak to each other. But there is something that they're all talking to each other. And in this space, which is my office, this is part of the conversation. Uh, I have a bunch of art in here, and it's all the same subject matter. Some of them are my pieces. This is an Indian piece of art. This is another American artist. But it works in here because of the color mixing. And then I've brought in furniture pieces that also have that depth of color. So it's not just the subject matter here with the art, but it's also now in the depth of color. Here is another cohesive element in the room that brings it together. Another, and the color too, like the frame around here is black. Actually, there's no frame on this. This is a stretched canvas, this middle one, but there is a black frame around the piece behind me. There is a black frame, and I have a couple other pieces all in black frame. And so even though pieces are different, they're all are speaking the same language. Tied it in with a black shade on this lamp, which is a crazy little lamp of a bunny rabbit looking at explicit material, but it is interesting and eclectic because it's in a silver light. So there is some interest in the color there. But eclectic is not easy to do because you could end up with a mixed bag of salad that doesn't actually all go with each other, if that makes any sense. So you need to have some coherency in the conversation, and that is in this case the subject matter in in a color, so the colors can rhyme in a pattern. And it doesn't mean that every pattern is floral, for instance, but there has to be a similar element so that the patterns in the sofa, in the furniture, in the fabrics of the furniture are all working together. The depth of color that will help bring, or the lack of color too, that could be eclectic in the lack of color. Although, I love colors, so I'm always going to bring in color. I love deep colors. And so now that's what I do in my home. And then this room works. I talked about the frames around the mailbox. I've made my door black. It's not the same color black, but it's in the same family. And it's actually the reverse. I've got a white frame around the door and a black door. So now some of the elements are coming together. And if you look in the rest of my room, I have a desk and a sideboard, and they're framed out in black. And that's they're like, this is a modern Italian piece. This is my desk and my sideboard and my cabinet are a 1980s vibe, black lacquer with lots of different colored woods. And again, the color comes in and speaks into this space. So I don't know what you have happening in your room or what makes it eclectic, what pieces you're bringing in to make the room eclectic. But think about the commonalities that these pieces have, or pieces that you want to bring in, or pieces that you think will work in the room. There has to be a common theme to the pieces in order for the eclectic to not feel like a mosh pit. Eclectic can be done. It can be a lot of fun. It mixes aesthetics, and it can make your place feel very personal. Just remember, keep the conversations between the pieces and keep a commonality so that it's cohesive and it feels good and it doesn't feel like you just got dropped into a basket of odds and ends. I'm Risha Walden. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe below. Eclectic is a very interesting topic because it can mean many things, but eclectic has to still have a conversation with all the pieces in the room somehow. Find the commonality. If you like this video, stay tuned for the next one. Coming over here.